Okay, I'm back, and in our previous segment we talked about why is the inside of the Earth hot. And then we also talked about what density was. So now let's combine those two concepts to explain three different ways that heat moves inside the Earth. So the first way is going to be through conduction. Now conduction works the best through solids. So let's say, for example, that you have a material that is composed of atoms that are hooked together. So let's say that this is a solid, and the atoms are hooked together. Let's put a heat source underneath it. So let's say it's a candle. So we know that heat, we describe heat in terms of temperature, and temperature was the motion of molecules. So what happens is these atoms, as they get more and more energy from the candle, they're going to start to vibrate back and forth. And so maybe this one's vibrating this way, maybe this one's vibrating this way, maybe this one is vibrating up and down. So they're all vibrating, and then because they're vibrating, they're going to cause the molecules or the atoms above them to start to vibrate. So as these start to vibrate, then these atoms start to vibrate. And then as these atoms start to vibrate, let's say maybe there's some more atoms up here, and it will cause them to vibrate. So notice that the vibrations are going to be traveling through the material, and then when it gets up to the top here, well, then those vibrations, that energy might go into the air and start the air to move. So that conduction is going to be the movement of heat through a material, but the material doesn't move very far. So you see these atoms are stuck where they're at, and so even though the vibrations are moving through the material, the heat is moving through the material, the atoms aren't actually carrying the heat with them. So conduction works the best through solids. So an example of this might be you're on a camp out and you take out of your backpack your aluminum tent poles and you throw them in the grass in the sun, and then you stake out your tent, and then you go to grab one of those tent poles and ooh, it's hot. Okay, because what's been happening is that heat has been conducted into that metal from energy from the sun, has been heating up that piece of metal, and then when you go to grab it, then that heat is being conducted from that piece of metal into your hand. Now let's talk about convection. So convection works the best in liquids and gases, fluids. Now you can have conduction through liquids and you can have it through gases, but it doesn't work the best. Convection works the best in fluids, in gases and liquids. We'll find out that you can even have conduction in a solid. We'll find out about that later. But let's just talk about a liquid. So let's pretend that you've got some water and it's in a container, and again you're going to heat it up. So the individual molecules of the water are going to start to move around because they've got more energy. Now this material down here at the bottom, because it's got more energy, the atoms are going to, or the molecules are going to spread out a little bit more, and so the density of this material down here at the bottom is going to start to become less than the density of this material here. And what did we say about denser materials? The more dense the material is, the more it wants to go down. The lighter materials, the less dense materials, want to float on top of them. So what's going to happen is that these molecules of water here are going to start to float up to the surface because they're less dense. Then when they get to the surface here, they're going to start to cool off, and then as they cool off, they're going to become more dense, and then they're going to go back down, they're going to heat back up again, and then they start the process all over again. So convection is going to make things go up, then cool off, and then come back down again, then heat back up again, and then go back up again. So these are going to be called convection cells. And you can have convection cells in the ocean. So as the hot water from the equator goes towards the North Pole, it then cools off and then it flows along the bottom of the ocean back to the equator. So those are convection cells. You can have convection cells in the atmosphere so that the air goes up and down, and we're going to find out that that's what's going to help to create a cloud. But we're more concerned now about convection inside the Earth. So in the parts of the Earth that are more movable, more fluid, you're going to have the heat is going to be causing the rocks and magma to come up and then to go back down again. So we're going to call that convection. And then finally, you've got radiation. So radiation is going to be the movement of energy in the form of light. So that could be radio waves, infrared, X-rays, gamma rays. So all the different kinds of light have energy associated with them, and we're going to call that radiation. Now, this is going to be very important when we talk about what causes weather on the Earth and what heats up the atmosphere. But as far as the Earth is concerned, really this process only occurs at the very surface of the Earth, where the surface of the Earth is heated up, and then it comes out of the Earth for a very small distance in the form of radiation, and then what happens is that energy starts to make the air move, and then that energy is then transferred into convection. So the main thing I want you to get is that conduction occurs inside the Earth, and this would be very important in the crust because the crust is solid. And then, for example, in the core of the Earth, the inner core, which is we're going to find out is solid, it's going to conduct. But convection is going to be very important in liquids, such as the outer core of the Earth, and convection is going to be very important in the mantle of the Earth. All right, so now let's go and look at convection currents. So here are some convection currents inside the Earth, and you can see how this material that's coming up and then cooling off and then going back down, that is going to be one of the primary reasons why the plates of the Earth are going to move. So the surface of the Earth is covered in these plates that we're going to call the lithosphere. And those plates are going to slide around on the surface of the Earth, and one of the primary reasons for that is going to be convection. Now, there is also other reasons why those plates are going to move, which we're not going to emphasize that much. But if you watch that Earth Revealed video on plate tectonics, they will talk about some of those other reasons why the plates are going to move. Okay, let's take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the different layers of the Earth. I'll see you in a few moments.